Let's do it.
Boom, let's do it. Right, so tell the peeps who you are. I'm pretty sure by your voice, everyone's gonna know who you are.
I
Obviously with the title too, but go for it, lad.
appreciate it. So, Austin Malleolo, and you know, I'm up here in the greater Boston area. So, running a couple gyms up here, working for CrossFit Incorporated as well as Reebok and Reebok CrossFit One. So, and getting through the tough times, like all of us, depending on where we're at in the world of navigating the gym industry and the gym world, where
Mm.
whether we're virtual, we're at home, or we're limited capacity, but making it happen as best we can, and happy that we're in 2021 and just gonna make it happen.
Yeah, for sure, mate, for sure. Did you start Reebok CrossFit One?
So, I guess you could say, technically, no, I wasn't there from when they signed the affiliate agreement over 10 years ago. But I came in within a couple months of them doing that, like 3 months,
Mm.
um, when, it was just like a true CrossFit affiliate where it's just a warehouse in the old Reebok headquarters. And,
Yeah.
just we're coaching the people that were showing up, it was like, and then over the past 10 years, we've grown a lot and formalized a lot, like most gyms. But we
Mm.
started out, old school, where we just had some weights on the ground and a couple barbells and dumbbells, and we just the employees, it was like an offering that we had for them. And and it's grown to sort of the entire corporate wellness program now, which is what I'm in charge of, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. What do you think like is the greatest change from the backyard sort of throwdowns to what it is now?
I think the biggest within the CrossFit community itself is, like anything, with any maturity of, whether it is a sport, whether it is a program, a product, whatever it might be, a business, comes opportunity, right?
Mm.
And I think that the big, yeah, when we first started, you could, have a two-car garage and it be a thriving affiliate. It was my first
Yeah.
gym I ever went to, was a two-car garage with a rope hanging down the ceiling, and I it was in a cul-de-sac. I thought I was lost. I was like, is this a gym or what is this? No, it's someone's house, but they're a garage. And I think there's a beauty to that, which is, it's very raw. It's very, it is what it is. But I think the double-edged sword of that is, not a lot of people are just going to seek that out and stroll up to someone's two-car garage to work out, right?
Mm.
So I think fast forward to where we are now, I think the opportunity to impact more people is so much greater. And for those of us that have been doing this for a long time, I think that's really what it boils down to, is helping people, right?
Mm.
Whatever reason you get into CrossFit, right? Whether you want to compete or whether you want to train or just learn more about movement, it becomes pretty clear pretty quickly that it's very effective, it's potent, and that you wish more people were doing this. And I haven't heard anyone not say this one phrase of, I wish I started sooner, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that that's the opportunity that we have now, and that's the beauty of it, right? Is that with market growth and maturation comes opportunity to impact more. Like anything, it's like the bigger you get, there are more challenges, but it's no different than with life, right? It's like
Mm.
your responsibility set when you're 15 is a lot different than when you're 30.
Mm.
Yeah, hopefully, right?
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So sometimes, yeah, it takes a little more just to run the day to day, but in turn, you have more of an impact, right? You have a family, you have other people that you might be responsible for. So I think it's natural growth, and I think it's really cool. I mean,
Mm.
the fact that we saw a pretty busy year for CrossFit last year, to say the least. But I think that and I've been able to get on the road a little bit more in the back half of 2020 and just doing seminars and stuff, and it's just human movement's the common language, and CrossFit's going nowhere, and it's which is really cool to see.
Yeah, for sure. And the base methodologies are never going to die. Like there's the reason why you've got the old classics, because they work. You know what I mean? There's always going to be a deadlift and a back squat, and there's always going to be
Yeah,
someone that wants to go a little bit of high intensity. So
yeah,
whether it changes and meanders around those paths, like it's never going to actually stop.
yeah. I think that's absolutely right. Is that it's you know and that's going to be natural as the market grows, right? Where
Mm.
you're going to see a lot of people sort of trying to put their spin on things, right? Which is normal, right? I mean, that's part of the deal, right? But what we for me being around CrossFit for over 10 years and owning running a gym and owning gyms for just as long, like basic CrossFit methodology is really effective.
Mm.
And it doesn't need to be super fancy. What the most important guiding tenet to that is the coach and how you develop your community, right? So you got to care about your people, care about your craft, and they got to keep coming back. So you got to it's got to be fun. It's got to be an experience, right? Where, it's a unique thing where, mid workout, no one's ever like, wow, this is an awesome thing, right? Like mid workout, everyone's like, this is awful, right? And hence that's why it's where we know adaptation occurs from. But as a coach, you got to create an experience. That's a tall order, right?
Mm.
It's that you really have to create a place where people, can have that, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it, shared suffering, right? And that's how communities develop. That's how bonds are created. But the leader, the coach, really, it has to curate that environment.
Mm. How do you think coaching's changed from back in the day to everyone just rallying in a double garage to now these these crazy gyms? Like I remember listening to a podcast, maybe this was probably about 3 years ago now, about CrossFit Louvre, and they have like 1,000 members.
Yeah,
I'm
Daniel
like,
Chafee runs that place. That's a great spot.
yeah, it's a really cool gym, and I love the whole like I nicknamed it like the little black book, kind of after like Mao's little red book, where basically they just accumulate everyone's information, and then they're still part of the online community, even if when they pass on, they move to different countries, and I think that's a really cool concept. But how do you think coaching has developed as CrossFit's developed and as it's kind of now tapping on the corporate scene and the wellness scene instead of just crazy people just wanting to wreck themselves?
Yeah. I think it's a really good question. And I think that the way I look at it as, put it this way, when competition's the same thing, right? When I started competing in 2009 and 10, I was able to, I found out what CrossFit was. I started doing CrossFit workouts. I went to my level 1 and trained hard, and I went to the CrossFit Games in 2010, right? And that can't happen now, right? No one's doing that nowadays. The level is so much higher. Now, and I think this is something that is really challenging, certainly for new coaches and new athletes, is that for people like me that were fortunate enough to start at that time, it was a natural progression. The volume increased, the loading increased, because we got better, right? So the workouts had to catch up. And Dave Castro talks about this all the time, of how that he has to challenge athletes and to test them. He has to push them, and sometimes they fail and don't make it, right? And that's okay. But in turn, that's why you see the tests getting ever harder, right? And evolving, because the athletes are getting better. I mean, you look at any professional sports league, right? You look at the NFL in the United States of America, for example, 50 years ago, there's a lot different caliber of athletes than we see today, right? And it's almost laughable, right? But the same approach happens with coaching. Is that, 10 years ago, you could walk in a gym, you could, know something about a squat and a deadlift and blow people's mind, right? Because again, even then it was like, you tell someone to push their knees out and keep their heels down and lift their chest up and squat below parallel for the first time in their life, God forbid, it was so new. And therefore the adaptation was so, like, people are like, wow, this is pretty impressive. But now, so for someone like myself, fortunate enough to be a part of CrossFit, and seminar staff, and being around trainers that are challenging me and pushing me, I always have to get better and grow. So I'm way better than I was 10 years ago, because it was a natural progression, coaching more people, new athletes, different places, new movements. And so if you come into the game today, it's going to take a lot longer to get to the standard that's expected at my gym, because it's been happening for some time, right? As opposed to if you come in 10 years ago, it's sort of cowboy country. So, and the same thing with athletes, right? It's where, you're going to have to put in 3, 4, 5 years of work to even be able to think about competing, right? And which is not, think about professionals, right? They spend their whole life up until they're 18-ish years old, right? They spend their whole life dedicated to that.
Mm.
So I think, and I think that's really tough because what that does, it means we're professionalizing and we're doing it in an appropriate fashion. But really, the guiding tenet has never changed: care, right? If you actually care about your craft, you want to get better. And now we just have more and more tools to do that. And you have more experience and an opportunity to keep getting better to deliver. And also, our coaching's harder because now at my gym, I have more members, but I also have a diverse skill set of athletes. I have 10-year CrossFitters. I have 10-day CrossFitters, right? In the same class. How do I add value to them? And so I have to be a better coach. And that's a huge challenge where, you open up a gym even 5 years ago, everyone that walks into your doors, they're brand new. You open up a gym now, half the people that sign up have been doing CrossFit already. So it's a very new beast, comparatively speaking to, just, 5 or 10 years ago. So it's, the level is higher, but I like that because you want a barrier to entry into a respective field or profession. There's a lot of talk, you always hear like, oh, it's level one's not enough to coach or not enough to open up a gym or an affiliate. But, I went to school for exercise science. I never once was tested on my ability to teach, see, or correct. I never once was asked how to move, right? At least at the level one, you move a little bit. At least at the level one, there's a practical application of the movements you're going to be teaching in a class, looking for, right? And I think that is something that is easily forgotten and overlooked where, and also keep in mind that everyone out there gets advice from people that have no qualifications, right? They just open up the internet and type in, how do I do this? How do I do that?
Yeah.
So the day and age it's even more, I think, of like, hey, just if you have a level one, my opinion, you are light years above your local Instagram fitness influencer, right? And nothing against the Instagram fitness influencer, but if you have some level of a credential, I mean, you got to give them some type of credit. So I think that's how it's changed. But now we have level 2, level 3, all these other courses. So I definitely would raise an eyebrow to see a coach that has been doing this for 5 years and they only have their level 1, right? And I'll often hear like, well, you'll hear some type of excuse, but it's worrisome because why wouldn't it's not that a credential makes you better, right? But it's the process that if I go there to learn, I can get better. I have the opportunity to learn and deliver a better product to my people. So I think that's what I see when I see someone with their level 3. I'm not like, oh wow, you're a good coach. I say to myself, you're committed and you've done some hard work. Now I'll be the evaluation if you're a good coach or not, right? But at least I know you care, and that to me puts you in a category above most.
100%. And it's all about the continuation of education, whether that is like directly in your field by going up 1, 2, 3, or 4, or you learn something else, you go do your BLS, your first aid, you go into all that sort of stuff, you go even in depth, like,
yeah.
And even just reading, even just picking up a book and being able to read, learning a little bit more about psychology so you can get into people's minds and figure them out. And like coaching is, I believe, the greatest profession because you do all the professions in one. Obviously, you'll never be like as good as a heart surgeon or a bloody psychiatrist or anything like that, but you have to know something about everything because, like you said, in a class, you're going to have someone who's done CrossFit for 10 years. You're going to have someone who's done CrossFit for 10 days. And you could also have that 10-day lady or 10-day lad who's in a wheelchair, or you could have someone who's deaf. And you're just like, all right, this is another challenge I've got to be able to figure out. And then it's verbal, kinesthetic, and all that sort of stuff. I think it's fascinating. I basically, the way I describe it is you've got to be Sherlock Holmes because it's just figuring out.
Yeah, emotional intelligence is the most important attribute a coach can have, and awareness, right? Like you said, read the room. Can you understand people? Not only when you're presented with, with new and challenging obstacles, whether it is from someone's, condition or an athlete you've never dealt with, or just someone that but they, having a bad day. How do you find that out? And like And so the more that you're keyed into them as a human, the better product you can deliver from a coaching perspective. You know, because the reality is today's workout doesn't matter, right?
Yep.
You know, in the grand scheme of things. And so, but the key is keeping people consistent and being aware. And, you know, the reason why CrossFit is so wonderfully effective is because it creates a sticky community. And that sticky community is something that keeps them coming back. But care is what really makes that work, right? Calling, texting, asking them where they've been, just showing up, like kind of like you talked about, you know, with Louvre, where, you know, they're checking in with people, and it's those things that separate. And as you get older in life, there are less places like that for adults. Kids have a lot of it, right? Sports teams and teachers. Like if you think about as you grow up, your life is built on a support group and network, your family, your friends, but even schools and teams, they're all there for you. And if something's out of sorts, one of them will figure it out, right? Usually. Whereas you get older, that goes away. And you know, and that's why you see, you know, people that get older really struggle in, you know, with depression, with anxiety, with their health, with their all these things, because they don't have a network of support. And that's really what a CrossFit affiliate becomes, right? It becomes that support network. And you know, you and as a leader, as a coach, you don't even sometimes need to, once you create that environment, your people will take care of each other, right? If someone doesn't show up, their friends will ask where they've been, right? You create a very unique culture there. So I think that's what really separates CrossFit. And it's also why you're going to see gyms. Yes, they're going to struggle through COVID and the closures, the shutdowns and things like that, but they're going to get through because their community cares, right? And they're a community that will always be there. And I think that's something that is important. And I think but no doubt it's going to be tough, but you know, it will be an industry that will survive because their patrons care about it as much as their business owners care about keeping their business open.
For sure, for sure. Community. What do we say? Like they come for the methodology, but they stay for the community.
Yeah, I mean the heart. Yeah, the heart is in the community.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So like there is no doubt that to become a coach, you already have some innate like feeling of you care about others, right? You want to give yourself to other people and help them. But what would be your number one advice, or maybe top three advice you would give to like a young coach who came to you as like, Austin, I want to develop, I want to help people, but I don't necessarily know where to start?
Yeah, gosh, this is a really good question. I get it a lot. And like I said, the answer is a lot different than it was 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I think the key is you just have to start coaching. You know, and I think a lot of people are afraid. It's like, what do I have to do? We need to coach and you need to get feedback on your coaching. So yeah, you got to care, but you know, at some point it's like, you know, you if you're in this conversation, I would say I have to assume that you care. And it'd also become very clear, right? Because if you're a young coach, you're gonna get the crappy hours, right? You're not, it won't be on your terms, right? I mean, that's the way it is. I mean, and not for nothing, that's the way it is in any job, right?
Yeah.
It's like a good example is like in the States, like if you're a policeman, a firefighter, you get in and you're a rookie, you get the shifts that no one else wants. You're the rookie, right? And you got to pay your dues a little bit like everyone else. So, and I think that that's important too. I think sometimes nowadays everyone's like, you know, I want, you know, demanding all these things. Like, no, like you gotta sweep, you gotta mop the floors, you gotta, you know, do all this stuff, you know. But so I always say that, you know, one, make yourself available. The answer is yes. Whatever it is, yes. Can you coach? Yes. When? Doesn't matter, right? And just get your reps in, but then also get feedback on that. It's easy to fall into an echo chamber. And because you coach your people, care about them, you kind of know what you're doing, they're gonna think you're great. They're gonna think you're amazing, right? Everyone's, oh, you're the best coach. I love my coach. I love my coach, right? That's not a good place for growth. That's a good place to feel good about yourself. That's not a good place to grow and keep getting better. You need to keep getting challenged. So whether it's your owner, your head coach, whomever, but get yourself in a position to get feedback. That's how you get better. Because then from there it guides you, where do you go to your education next, right? Like, wow, like I really struggle teaching, you know, the barbell, or maybe I should go to a barbell course and learn more. Maybe I should, you know, the gymnastics or whatever it might be, Feedback is essential to success. Not only getting feedback, the ability to hear it and implement it and do it consistently. So, and for younger coaches, it's like, it's not going to be pretty in the beginning,
Fuck
but
yeah.
if you want your, and I hear this a lot from veteran coaches. They're like, that kind of leave the coaching realm, and they kind of talk a lot of like, you can't be they kind of talk about being successful as a coach, and like, if 10 years down the road you're doing the same thing that you did, 10 years ago, you've done something wrong, right? It's in any job, right? Unless that's what you love, and everything's where you want it to be. There's nothing wrong with that either, right? But if 10 years down the road you're like, I'm unhappy, well, something went wrong along the way. It just didn't happen that way, right? And I think for coaches, it's easy just to fall into this complacency breeds mediocrity type of this revolving circle, as opposed to pushing, getting better. What's next? How do I grow? If that's what you want, right? I think that's key. It's like, well, if you are cool coaching from 5 a.m. to noon every day, and that's your schedule, and this is what you're getting paid, all that good stuff, there's nothing wrong with that. Just like some people are super keen on I work from 9 to 5 every day, and I clock in, I clock out, I'm good to go, and that's great. But if that's not, if there's something leaving you unfulfilled, then you got to keep pushing.
How would
So
you
that's what I would tell a newer coach.
Yeah, that is true. But how would you create that within a gym setting? Because it's all come from culture, right? Like, we all speak from experience. So I try and surround myself with a tight knit people that end up, this whole saying of like, you surround yourself by 5 millionaires, you'll become the sixth, right?
Yeah.
So how would you end up creating that dynamic within a gym setting, within the coach's realm, rather than the actual members that come in to help people end up pushing forward?
I think that there's a few things. Full honesty and transparency, right? As an owner, as a coach, you got to be honest and transparent with what is available. The CrossFit business model is a very simple business model. You're not working at a multi-million-dollar company here that has opportunity to climb the corporate ladder across 10 years, right? And so what are the growth opportunities, right? Let them be autonomous. Let them pursue other things outside of your business, unless you're going to be able to provide them those things as well, right? Do they have some other, a lot of coaches have other things that they might do. If you provide it, great, but give them opportunity to own it. Give them opportunity, whether that's to own parts of the business, right? Over time, if you want to phase yourself out as, the owner, or the head coach, well, how do you do that? Well, you have to start to leverage ownership to others, right? So being transparent on it, but also there might not be a timeline, and being transparent on that. So, Alex, if you come in and you're like, well, in 5 years, this is what I want. I'm like, well, I don't know if we're going to be able to deliver that in 5 years. I'll never hold you back, but I don't know if I can give that to you. Because what that does is it creates a true culture of like, well, it's honesty, right? And usually in those types of cultures, you weed out those that want handouts, which is nice. And then from there, it's like, well, what part of this business can you fully own, right? Is there something we don't do? Well, can you own that part of the business, whatever it might be, right? And then have success based off that. So, and I think there's a lot of opportunities there. And I think once you create that culture, and also know that the ceiling is the ceiling at some point, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay. I mean, I always say, if I do my job, I lead and manage myself, out of a position, or I lose my people because they get too good and they get opportunities elsewhere. Then I look at that as a success.
Not everyone does, though.
Oh, of course not. I mean, but that's the nature of and a lot of people think they do, but also put into practice a lot harder. And but also it's whoever you work for, if you're a coach, I always say that you need to go 51%, and they'll meet you 49%. What I mean by that is, you can't just expect things to come to you, to be handed to you. You got to go that 1 extra percent. It's scary to do that, right? That means you initiate the conversation. You have to do a little more, But quite frankly, for those leaders that are the right leaders, they like that. They want that. And they'll never be offended by that. And they'll tell you, no, can't do this. It's just very simple, right? And that's where communication breaks down in any relationship, whether it's your personal or professional relationships, is that most people are not willing to go 51%, right? Therefore, nothing gets done. And when both people are sitting in the middle at 50%, no one likes that, right? Creates very contentious times.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah, that's powerful, and I think, like you said, people are scared about putting themselves out there. They feel vulnerable, especially when they are a young coach, because you're like, I've got to earn my stripes, but I don't want to pipe up. I don't want to say too much. I don't want to get kicked out, etc., etc. Yeah, that's really powerful.
And I think with that, with vulnerability comes risk of getting hurt.
Yeah,
Of course, you got to be okay with that, right?
for sure.
But and this is where the rubber hits the road, right? Like everyone talks about it, right? Where you gotta put yourself out there. You gotta take the risk. Well, like the reality is you will fail. The reality is you will not get what you want, and that's okay. It's sort of like if when you apply for a job, you apply for schools. A lot of people don't apply for things because they say, "Well, I'm not going to get this job." It's like, well, yeah, when that's a possibility if you apply. That's part of the deal. And that's a simple example of it only gets more scary as you put more on the line, right? But some of the most successful people that I know within this world too have failed numerous times before they succeeded, right? Very rarely do people just succeed, right? And very rarely do you see the struggles or failures leading up to that because no one cares, right?
Yeah.
They care about, oh wow, this they made it or whatever it is, right? So vulnerability is a real thing, and a lot of people don't like it, right? No one likes. It's like, you know, to think about a race car driver, right? It's like you show me a race car driver that's never crashed. I'll show you one that's never won, right? But the crash doesn't make you better. It's like, in order to win, you got to crash. No, but it's unavoidable in the process of getting better. If you want to win, you will fail en route too, right? And that's and that's scary, but that's part of the deal. Because what's also the reality is sometimes you might not win ever. You might crash and you might never win. And that holds people back, right? I mean, and in life. So, and I think that's the thing where you got to also keep in mind where everyone's different. So at some point, as a leader, as a manager, as a friend, as a mentor, you only can do so much, right? I can't help someone unless they're unwilling to help themselves. You have, and that's where you got to go 51%.
There's beauty in vulnerability though. Like there's so many lessons to learn. There's so many things to learn from those failures, and even the very essence of standing in front of a whiteboard and we're going, hey guys, I'm going to be your coach today. Like you're vulnerable because there's 12, 16, whatever many faces looking at you, and those sets of eyes, and they're looking at one person, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh my God, like I say too many times, or I've got a potty
Oh,
mouth, or you know what I mean, like my accent's different, and you just think back and be like, all right, the first year of coaching, were you an incredible coach? And you can almost laugh at yourself because you're just like, oh my days, like I had no idea what I was doing. If they could get in my head, they'd probably walk out the door because they'd be like,
right.
he is out of his depth.
Oh yeah, it's like driving. You were a
Just like
shitty
driving.
driver when you first got behind a car. You were bad.
Yeah.
But you didn't kill anyone, right? You were like, that's the thing, like hopefully, right? But and that's what I tell people that when I finish level ones, I'm like, you're gonna be a bad trainer on Monday. Just like you were a bad driver when you were 16 years old. And that's okay. But you know what? You'd never be the driver you are today if you didn't start. Now, there are ways that you should start compared to others. You probably started in a parking lot, with no traffic, with your, whomever's helping you learn, teaching you, a mentor, teacher, guidance. Same thing with coaching. Limit your scope. know what you don't know, and master the fundamentals. Those are good things to live by, not only in the coaching realm, but all over. But also, I tell this to level 2 trainers and more veteran trainers. I said, well, how many of you guys have been driving for 10, 20, 30 years? How many of you guys are professional drivers? No one raised their hand. And I say, well, remember, experience does not equal expertise. And that's important, because in the coaching world, a lot of people say, well, I've been doing this for a long time. Doesn't mean anything, right? Because at some point you hit that very low ceiling of development if you haven't developed and challenged. If you are a professional driver, what's the difference between you and someone else? You learned, you got feedback, and you made it your job to become a better driver, right? It's that simple. So, and the same thing comes with coaching, right? Just because you coach all the time doesn't mean that you're anything special of a coach. You might have, it's like, I've never said, 80 years old and, really just proud of my driving skills. Well, why? Well, I drove every day. Oh, okay. I mean, it'd be strange to hear someone say that, right?
Yeah.
So be very mindful of, just because you coach every day doesn't necessarily mean much.
Mm. What do you think of the process of recording yourself as you coach? Like saying, hey guys, just to let you know, I'm going to be recording my session. If anyone's got any problems with it, obviously you won't do it. But what do you think of that process? Or do you like another set of eyes looking at you to give you a completely fresh perspective?
Yeah, I think look at coaching feedback just like coaching in and of itself. The best thing is to have someone giving you feedback in what you're doing. So a live coach, someone giving you feedback there. Filming and then watching back is it's a lot, because also, like, there's a lot of things that you're doing that you might not even remember, audio, video, where you are. There's a lot of things that go against just your ability to actually, so when I evaluate a class, I'm following the coach around. I'm like within 10 feet of the coach for the full hour, right?
Mm.
I want to hear what you're saying, what you're doing, what you're following up on, so on and so forth. I want to see interactions. I want to see what you're missing, all these things. It's hard to capture on video, but it's a distant second to not have, and it's a way far above nothing, right?
Mm.
So it's just more of a sliding scale there.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. Do you need to pop off to another meeting?
I have a meeting so I have a 2:30 on my time, so I have less than a half hour.
Oh, legend. You all right to continue?
Yeah.
All right, spot on. Something that everyone fucking knows about you. Like, you juggle so many different plates. How do you manage your time, man? Like, you are, especially as a coach within this industry, you are a leader in so many different avenues. And then how do you manage yourself to be able to put on those multiple hats and be like, okay, today I need to do this, then next I need to do this, and next I need to do that?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And I think the biggest thing is, I think you have a couple tools that I leverage, but I think one, I'm fortunate enough, I love what I do, right? So it very rarely becomes like, there's nothing I'd rather be doing than what I do throughout the day. And in turn, it has become all that I do. And so I think that's really important, is passion fuels the energy, right? A lot of people say, where do you get the energy? It's like, well, what else my answer to myself is, what else would I be doing? Right. And I think that's important, where, and maybe I'm a little maniacal in that, where I'd rather work than sit down and watch TV. I'd rather, it's just the way I'd rather work out than sleep in. Right. So those are that's where my mind is. And that's my mindset. Now, from there, it's just organization, so the key is, for me, is to just map it out, and to have a flow of, from when I wake up to work out to eat, like it's a consistent rhythm, right? And that's so certainly here in the States for me, like when everything got locked down for COVID, I had to reimagine what that looked like, right? Because it's very different than when I was going to the gym every day. But that really allowed me to actually refine setting up my plan. Whereas it's very easy to get into your rhythm and let that just be your rhythm, but doesn't necessarily mean you're optimizing it. And so once everything changed and what my day looked like, I was able to sort of, I have to create something new. So, little nerdy things like, the calendar, the schedule, things like that make it easy on me, and making sure that everything, so when I look at my phone or look at my computer of what's next, what's tomorrow, I plan. And then communication is really important as well, where, so my wife, her and I communicate all the time of what am I doing when I'm traveling for a seminar, working meetings, things like that. And priorities, right? So I pick up my daughter at 3:30 from daycare, and that's my time from 3:30 when she goes to bed. I try not to schedule anything. And that's that for me, that's my time that I want to spend with her.
Mm.
And, but then she goes to bed, now I can work again, right? So, and that for me is an opportunity. All right, she goes down. Now I can have a phone call at 7, 8, or 9 p.m. if I need to. Um, so that's how I set my priorities up. And then having people around me that are equally as driven and motivated make it much easier, because you inspire and motivate each other. And you said it. You surround yourself with, 5 millionaires, you become the sixth. You know, and there's a reason why like-minded individuals surround themselves with each other, is because it creates a very healthy growth atmosphere. And also challengers too. That's another thing. It's like you don't want to live in an echo chamber. And what I mean by that is you don't want people that just say, you don't want people just to pat you on the back and say everything you're doing is right and good. You want challengers. You want people to give you feedback. If everyone around you is a yes man or yes woman, raise an eyebrow that you're not growing, that you're not getting better. Echo chambers are a dangerous place because it's where nothing progressive happens, right? You just are confirming, this confirmation bias type of thing. So I think that's another thing that's really helpful from staying motivated, is being challenged, right? And because you want to get better. And that not only is on yourself, but other people. You should have other people pushing you, and it makes your life easier. Sometimes it's stressful, sometimes it's a lot, right? Because you feel that, but you also, you know, you have to go through those moments, right? Stress, in different senses of the word. That's how we grow, right? And sometimes we push too hard, and we have to take care of ourselves, all those things, but that's inevitable, just like training, right? Just that's how you get stronger and fitter and faster. It's uncomfortable. Sometimes you overreach and overtrain, but you learn that threshold.
For sure. So something that a term that's thrown around a lot is leadership, right? And leadership looks different through many sets of eyes. What is leadership to you, if you have to put it in a nutshell?
Leadership is action, right? And it's not what you say, it's what you do and who you are, right? You lead people and you manage systems, right? So leaders lead people. People follow inspiration. Inspirations is derived from action. If you think about what inspires you to do anything, it's action. It's something that you think, well, I can do this. I should be doing this. It creates something inside of you that you want to now act. When you see someone speak with empathy and care, when they're nice to someone, when they do an act of just true altruism, it inspires you. It's you're like, wow, and almost to the point you're like, I should do more of that. In the moment, that person's being a leader. Leaders don't lead to lead. Leaders lead because it's who they are. Leaders aren't coined or crowned. They are given that title and that responsibility because they're people, and people behind them tell them that, right? So an action is the only thing that creates leadership, right? And because within action comes how you behave, how you speak. It's all things that you do. No one cares about your ideas, and no one cares about your thoughts. Everyone, and it's true. It's like, no one cares about your potential. They just care about what you're doing. And that's what it boils down to, is action.
Everyone's seen that picture, right, with the horse and chariot, with the boss in the back with the whip, and then the leader is at the front. And it is about pulling the weight, and it is about doing the things that you said you were going to do, or even doing it before you said you were going to do it. Just
Yeah, lead
being
from the front,
seen.
right?
Yeah, lead from the
Yeah.
front, 100%. And I think what a lot of members don't realize, and it's something that through my eyes I see it as well, is like the members are leaders to one another, and they have every obviously opportunity to learn from us, but we've got 16 individuals or 12 individuals or however many people are in the class. We've got that many opportunities to learn from another human being. So then, like stepping at the front, you are now like in front of 16 different leaders, and you can now learn from 16 different people.
Oh yeah, and I think that's what makes, the transition of culture that happens at a CrossFit gym is very unique, where if you have your class of 10, 15 people, they come from such a diverse background, and it's so cool. I mean, you have kids, and then teachers and policemen and policewomen, and you have you know you know CEOs and interns and temps. You have all these people in the same class, and human movement's the common language. So when you have a level playing field like that, it's really powerful. And
Mm.
that's why it's so important to make sure that you create a community that's it's inclusive and welcoming. And that's why, when people say, like, oh, CrossFit's, it's intimidating, I think to myself, like, as a gym owner, I want every person to want to come to my gym. So I want everyone to feel welcome.
Mm.
All different, your race, your sex, your whatever it might be. For me, you're just a human being that I want to be able to help.
Mm.
So, and I need to make sure I create an environment that people want to be there. And that's a hard thing to do, to make everyone feel comfortable, right? It's challenging.
Yep.
So you have to be, like you said, but part of that is, if you empower your people to be leaders, they will bring in, because it's naive to think that I can bring in all of these people. But if I create a group of empowered individuals in my classes, they're going to bring more people into the gym, because they're going to talk about it to their friends, and they have their circles, and it starts to sort of proliferate out. So I think that's the key, is to empower them, and how you do that is to inspire them, right? And that's how CrossFit has always grown, is that people will talk, the the old saying that CrossFitters don't shut up about CrossFit, right? Well, it's
Rule
not
number
bad
one.
marketing,
Yeah.
right? It's like, so there's a lot of truth to that.
It's like the domino theory, right? You knock one over, and the rest follow. It's providing the leadership and the caring about that one individual, and one makes two, and two makes four, and the next thing you know, it's exponentially grown, and you've got a business that's thriving, and all that starts from is action and caring.
Right.
And it's hard, especially when you feel like you're a cat in headlights and you've thrown yourself in at the deep end. You're like, oh my God, I've got bills to pay. I got a family. I have 3 members in my gym. You're just like, how am I supposed to run? I can keep it floating for like 3 months. It's like, hang on a minute. Like, you've got 60 minutes. And I think my favorite quote from CrossFit is, make it the best hour of the day, because it breaks everything down. You have to forget about everything else. Like, everyone can concentrate for an hour, especially when you break it down. It's like 3 minutes to the board. You give them a piss break in the middle of the class, so that's 2 minutes. So then you've only got 55 left. You give them a cool down, so then there's 50 minutes, and you break it down that way. And it's like, oh, okay, like, I can't focus on anything else, no matter what stresses are going on. Right now, the 3 people in front of me are the most important people in the world. And if you do that enough times, things end up snowballing.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, it just, you've never made a mistake if you fully invested in what you're doing in the moment.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
What was the most difficult skill set for you to develop as a coach? Whether it was like teaching a certain movement, or whether it was something completely elaborate, like, what was the most difficult for you?
I think the most challenging aspect for me from a coaching perspective is and I think it's still to this day is, when you're coaching a diverse group of people from skill sets and experience perspective, how do I make that experience for them enjoyable from start to finish? How do I add value to my advanced athletes, my intermediary athletes, and my beginners? My one or two fire breathers to my majority people that just don't care, and to a handful of people that just showed up. How do I add value to the person that's been coming for a long time and really struggling getting better? They're frustrated. And how do I educate and inspire and entertain all of them across an hour? I know it's a big sort of esoteric answer, but because within that, everything needs to get better.
Mm.
You need to know your content better. You need to have your lesson plan. Your program needs to be on point. You need to be prepared. You need to have every detail cleaned up, from music to logistics to a lot of those things you just mentioned. But and then you need to have that so buttoned up that you can be present and in the moment. So everything needs to get better. You need to know your progressions. You need to know what you're looking for. What is the focus? You need to be ready for the what ifs. So the preparation needs to be through the roof, because the only way to execute on that is to be so present, to be aware that you can be flexible in the moment to deliver on that product. So I think and I would say that's the hardest thing for coaches to do, no matter where you're at in your coaching career. That's why in the beginning you should limit your scope, not coach so many people, because it is a huge challenge. But and we're only seeing that challenge more and more now, right? Because we cross has been around longer, so you're
Mm.
seeing more experience, but also more people are starting.
Mm. Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. I think it's an incredible challenge. I find it really fun, especially when you get to communicate with the individuals and the humans in front of you. You're like, all right, like listening to them, they end up telling you exactly what they need and their experience, and then you can adapt from there.
Right.
Would you ever look at Wodify or Team Up or whatever system that you have and be like, okay, we have Jake and Sandra coming in. I know they're a little bit more of a visual learner or a little bit more of a kinesthetic learner. Would you ever adapt, like mentally rehearse and adapt the way you're going to coach the class from the people that are assigned in?
I think the short answer is absolutely. And whether that's like as you get to know your people, right? So the predicated, knowledge there is, do you know your people? Do you care enough about them to know something, right? Whether it's how they learn, how they move, whatever it might be, how they're motivated, um, how, and then from there, yeah. So how are you going to change your approach, your teaching, your seeing, your correcting, whatever it is, right? And to a 10-year veteran, you should probably treat a little different than a 10-day-old athlete. Give
Mm,
them a little more respect. They've earned that respect from being there for so long. When you scale those athletes, ask them what would they like to do, right? Give them a little more, autonomy and responsibility there. Whereas you should not ask a 10-day athlete anything, right? You tell them what to do because that's what they don't know anything. They're just starting off. So those are just some simple examples where if I have, a, a whole class full of people that have a level of experience that's at least 2 years, well then maybe I'll change the warm up to make it a little more advanced or a little faster or whatever it might be, right? So to kind of shoot from the hip and take care of the class from that perspective, you need to be ready for it. Absolutely.
mm, mm. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, brother. I know you're a extremely busy person, so
I
I'm not
appreciate
gonna.
I appreciate the time.
No, I really do appreciate it, mate, and we'll catch up very soon.
You got it. Be well. Thank you.
All right, mate. Take it easy. Peace and love.
You too.